welcome to this afternoon's work session. We will first discuss if any commissioner would like to take any of the preliminary items for next BOC meeting for discussion.
I couldn't find mine.
There you go, record.
Oh, we on TV.
Yes, you are. All right, here and now we're going to go into our first presentation. And we will first hear from Public Facilities Authority Board President, no?
Cherry Street.
Cherry Street, okay. Cherry Street Energy Update.
First of all, good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioner Hambrick. To set the stage for our presentation from Cherry Street, as you all know, we came to this board probably about a year and a half ago, talking specifically about looking at our energy efficiency and EV charging stations and a multitude of things, primarily centered around the fact that we know that technology is one of such that's changing daily, and so innovation in government is needed as well. I was very fortunate to have Cherry Street and their leadership walk through this process with us to have a multitude of discussions, whether it's with our building and maintenance department, transportation development, our finance department, legal, and of course the operations side of the house, working through my office to work with that. So I'll ask that the gentlemen come forth. They will kind of set the stage about the details of what our findings have been, and of course give this board an opportunity to pose any questions you may have about electric vehicles or any infrastructure challenges that we may be challenged with, and ultimately how we would like to move forward on that end. So with that.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank y'all for having us today. I think Chief Stanford did a great job of kind of laying the background of who we are or why we're here. First, we just want to thank you all for having us. Is there a way? Do I get back and forth? You got it. Perfect. Okay. So we're Cherry Street Energy. I brought with me today our head of sales and our CEO and owner, Michael Channon and Zach Powell. And who we are, we sell power, not panels. So Cherry Street Energy, we are the leading provider of on-site solar or on-site emission-free electricity. We're a power company, and what we try to do is make it as simple as possible for organizations to become more sustainable using solar power. We do that by generating 100% renewable energy, and we keep that competitively and predictably priced. So here's a background of a couple of some of the organizations we've had the chance to partner with throughout Georgia, but in this case with Clayton County, what we've had a chance to do is work very closely with Chief Stanford, with Ben Hopkins over in facilities. We've had a chance to actually get on site, look at the roofs, look at a number of buildings and pull out the ones that made the most sense, the ones that would be able to save the county money beginning in year one. And so this is just an example of what we've been able to do with another partner and how we plan to grow. For the city of Atlanta, we've built over 2 megawatts of capacity, and that's 26 solar power systems. That equals over 118,000 kilowatt hours for the city over the last 30 days, and over 6 megawatts to date. So we streamline this process, we make it easy. And the point of that is to just let you know that our job is to try to grow with our customers. Things are changing at a very fast clip right now. Energy rates throughout the Southeast are skyrocketing. We're also going through what I like to call what we like to call a clean energy transition, with more vehicles moving to EV every day. And it's going to be up to us at home and at work to prepare for this transition. The way we want to help our partners do that is by providing solar or providing renewable energy without the financial risk. So we build, we maintain, we optimize the power for you all, and the benefits are there's no upfront investment for the county, there are no maintenance costs for the county, and there's no worry about obsolete equipment for the county. So in that first slide or in my introduction where I spoke about being a power provider or a power company, That's the same thing you would expect from them. It's the same thing you'll get from us. And so the difference, though, lies in the fact that you also won't have any hidden fees or tariffs with us. So while we are working to offset a certain amount of your energy month over month, save you money, you won't have to worry about us sneaking in a random tariff here or anything of that nature. The energy rates that we tell you about at the beginning are the same rates throughout. We're very transparent, and it gives you long-term price certainty on that portion of your power that we look to offset. We do this through 6 steps. Where we are right now is in that site consultation / diligence and design section. And that's what I've had a chance to work with Ben Hopkins and team on looking through. So again, we make sure that we go through every single step that leadership may have or that anyone from the public may have before we come to you with a final recommendation. That includes site visits, that includes taking pictures of the roof, that includes looking in your electrical rooms, having conversations with Georgia Power on your historical usage, and also who would be involved in the actual installation if we so reach that point. The reason for that is because we own and operate these for you, right? And so we're not going to put your infrastructure into any peril because our infrastructure is there as well. So we become a partner. We become one in this partnership. We try to make sure that both sides feel the same. We're incentivized to create power for you. We're also incentivized to protect your assets the same way we're protecting our own. So after reviewing a number of sites for Clayton County, we came across these 5 as the lowest hanging fruit, the sites that made the most sense, the sites that would give us the best chance for success and savings. That included the Carl Rodenizer Rec Center, the jail complex, Clayton Parks and Rec, South Clayton Rec Center, and the Virginia Gray Rec Center. The great thing about this collection right here is that you have some public-facing buildings here, but you also have your main complex where you could look into installing EV. You could look into places where fleet could actually charge those EVs and not have any sort of intrusion from the public. And so the jail complex became a great site for that. It's always, I mean, a jail complex in general is just always going to be more of an energy hog, but over time and through the rest of these installations, you also get the positive piece, which is what we see with a lot of our other partnerships, and that's having that public-facing installation, being able to say to those who come and frequent these sites, hey, we have solar on the roof, we are producing our own energy, this is how much we're producing, here are the solar equivalencies for that, whether it be the number of homes that could be powered by the same amount of power that we're producing here, or the number of cars that could be driven. And so you get that learning opportunity, you get to save the community's tax dollars, and then you also get an opportunity to fortify your budget for the foreseeable future. Now, in looking at those 4 sites and looking at the average life of solar arrays, you're looking at a 20 to 25 year time frame. The warranty for a solar array is about 20 to 25 years, and so what we've looked to do is maintain it for you for at least that amount of time. We do that by handling all of the installation, all of the procurement, and we translate that into a energy price per kilowatt hour that's very similar to what you're paying your utility. And we make sure that rate is going to be less than what you're paying your utility. That way you see the savings over time. You also see below the avoided construction and maintenance costs, which is the cost we would incur in order to design and build this. And then you have a chance to see the annual escalation. And so you know from the day that you enter into an agreement with us what you'd pay in year 1 and what you'd pay at the end of the life of those panels. A little bit of my background is that I worked as an energy and sustainability manager at Fulton County. And my first project was a renewable energy project that I decided to do on my own. And one of the few regrets that I have from that project is we didn't have the people, on staff that were prepared to kind of handle everything that came with the panel. So while we knew we were saving money, we didn't know exactly how much. While we knew that the installation was right, we didn't know exactly when the maintenance schedule should be. And it's simply because it's a newer technology. And so for my second contract, I moved to an organization, Cherry Street actually. And the point in doing that was in order to make sure that I had someone that I could call whenever I had questions about this. I had someone who I could reach out to understand what the savings impact would be. I had someone where I could call Georgia Power and call my representative, have them both on the line if I had questions or needed clarity from either side. And so it ended up being, while I am excited about all of the renewable energy decisions we made, having the opportunity to do this in a way that saved us money but also lowered our risk turned out to be the better path for me moving forward. I wanted to also stop right here and talk about the interest that through some of the calls and interviews, there was an interest in EV charging for some of the existing EVs that are currently in the fleet. And so with the savings that you have here, we thought it would be a great idea to go ahead and roll in some EV charging so that you can take advantage of some of the lower cost energy that you have on site. You're also not paying retail rates to charge those vehicles because you could take advantage of any energy that is pulled from Georgia Power or from us on site. And so what we did was we also made a suggestion for 24 plugs and 12 chargers at that jail complex. We would handle all of the installation, all of the procurement, all of the design for that as well. And then we would be the one to maintain those over the life of the chargers. And so, could you follow it further for me? This is that overview. And what it shows is a monthly cost per plug, the number of plugs. And basically you're looking at one station and a plug on each side or on both sides of it. And so those plugs would come up to about $110 per month. What that does is that allows you to avoid all of the capital costs that you would have to incur if you decided to build it up front, but then you'd still need to pay that monthly cost to whoever the provider is of the EV charging station. This is basically just the EV charging station's monthly cost with the capital costs avoided. And so when you look at the savings that the solar provides, it allows you to more or less offset some of the costs that are frankly inevitable by all municipalities and really a lot of homes in the future of these EV charging stations. Can you scroll? And what this will do is it'll give you a chance to have one provider for your renewable energy and your charging. That price will be transparent and predictable, and you'll already have the relationship with Cherry Street because we are maintaining your solar arrays. If those solar arrays are not producing energy, we're not receiving any revenue. And so we already have a symbiotic relationship, and this is just more or less the icing on the cake to help with any other support that you all may need. So when you throw these two together, you're looking at over $10,000 in savings in year one of the solar agreement. The budget impact for the EVs would be about $30,000. But that does not include any installation or procurement that you would need to pay if you decided to purchase EVs through another organization or through any of the, more or popular EV providers. So what you start with in year one is a $21,000 budget impact, not upfront, over time, where you've now implemented renewable energy, you've implemented the charging system that you're most likely looking to implement over time anyway. You've avoided the capital costs on both, and the budget the savings from your solar will continue to increase year over year. and that's due to the escalation of Georgia Power. They increase on an average of 3 to 5% per year. Over the last few years, it's been much higher just due to fuel costs and COVID and other just economic pressures. But by the time you get to about year 5, the savings from solar will have completely eclipsed any impact from the EVs. And so from that point forward, you're now saving money on the EVs and basically, or saving money on the solar and not seeing any budget impact from your EVs. So this is just a schedule that kind of speaks to so a lot of the work that we've had a chance to do with Chief Stanford and his team. We had an initial proposal, then we did all of the diligence and data sharing that comprised of at least 4 to 5 visits to most of the sites. We did our own site analysis, had engineers come out. We had third-party engineers take a look at the roofs, at the structures to do a structural analysis. We did site surveys. We also had a chance to talk with the legal group and with Carol Rogers over in procurement, just to talk about how that path could work for Clayton County, if there was a path to procurement. And in order to stay on track with trying to implement EV charging mainly in the 3rd or 4th quarter, if we were able to target that first installation for the July to August timeframe, we would be able to stay on track with basically the numbers that I showed earlier. And so that's a good summary of everything we've done so far. And you can roll forward, see. If there are any questions, I'd like to take those now, but we also have some other slides on the appendix if needed. But you can stay right here.
Board, Kenneth, thank you for providing a great overview of where we are. Even with the CEO here, he's been on a couple of calls with us as well, just to show the level of commitment Cherry Street has had with regard to potentially this being a pathway for the county. So it's 2 primary reasons that we thought it was important to bring the presentation now. One, as this board continues to try to figure out creative ways to be able to balance the budget and figure out ways that we can do greater things within the county, we oftentimes talk about cost enhancement. So we try to find new revenues out there to offset that. Here's an opportunity what I call cost avoidance. So sometimes you can look at your budget and figure out ways to save money and have tremendous savings in that space, but even have an enhanced service because of that. The fact that this board will be looking to make a decision here at the end of the month about our FY25 budget, we thought it was important at least bringing forth this information to let you hear firsthand to see if there's a path forward, and then ultimately if there's something that we want to consider as part of the budget, then so be it. The second part of that is that as we talk about innovation, whether we're talking about enhancements in our fleet, whether we're talking about enhancements in our facilities, if there might be a greater upfront cost, but there might be a cost savings over a period of time because we've strategically looked how we can onboard certain companies to help us with this. And I love the term that Kenneth used as partners, not as a hired gun, to really help us through the process because they have skin in the game and they have to have investment in where we're headed as well, will go a long way to ensure that as we talk about sustainability and infrastructure changes, that ultimately is reflective of where we want to go as a county. So I just want to add those 2 last caveats, and certainly I'll yield the microphone back to Cherry Street if you have any additional questions about the process.
Yeah, how did you all come up with that name? Cherry Street.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Michael Channon. My grandparents had a clothing store on Cherry Street in Macon, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
All the solar names were confusing and ran together. And my wife came up with it. And she said, we want to be citizens in every community that we serve. And it sounds like a hometown name. And so now Macon, Bibb County was actually our first customer. And then Atlanta, and then Fulton County with Kenneth, and then Savannah, and then Chatham, and then Athens, Clark County. And we really hope Clayton County makes the same. But it's from my hometown. We all stand on somebody's shoulders, and it was a way to always remember it.
Okay. I was just trying to connect it with what you're presenting.
Yes, ma'am. It's always but Cherry Street Energy. So Cherry Street was something that people could hopefully remember And if we had some solar name, we thought, sun this or solar that, people got confused.
Thank you.
No other questions? Please proceed.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. All right, next up we will have, let's see here, is the Flint River Gateway people here? Please.
All right.
Good
Good
to
evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and staff. Shannon James with the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance. Excited to be before you this evening on, very positive news. I'm sure this is not new news for you, but I think the update today will be very informative in regards to the partnership evolution that's happening in regards to the Flint River Trails Network. Obviously, our partners, the Atlanta Regional Commission, are doing a masterful job of helping us and guiding us through this process and ensuring success, right? So you'll hear from myself, Eric Myers, and but more importantly, today I think we're just excited about this continuation, right? We've been successful in regards to federal funding, not once, but now twice. And so now we're looking at how do we capture this moment and be very strategic, and versus waiting for federal funding, let's start now. And so the state has responded, and so now we're looking to respond as well via agreements. And so Eric Meyer will guide us through the presentation, and we'll look to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Shannon. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Eric Meyer. I'm with the Atlanta Regional Commission. We're no strangers to y'all, I'm sure. Our mission statement is to foster thriving communities for all within the Atlanta region through collaborative and data-informed planning and investments. And you see all the goals. I won't read those, but a little bit about us. We're not strangers to Clayton County and your member cities. We've done countless studies, and these are just a few from the last 5 years with Clayton and, again, the cities they're in. And investments, it's wanting to skip that one, isn't it? Come on, stay. And of course, ARC manages the Transportation Improvement Program with federal dollars that then goes to GDOT. And so we have lots of projects in our TIP that are focused on Clayton County capital investments. So we've been a longtime partner and enjoying the partnership. Want to keep it going. So I'm here today to, I guess, more formally make the announcement that with all you and lots of other partners, we applied for originally $160 million to do work on a project, and we didn't quite get 160, but there we go. We did manage to get 64.9 million, so not too bad. Initially, they gave us 50, and then we lucked out. One of the other cities had a sort of double dip. They had applied for this program and another program. They got awarded the grant in the other program, and we were able to scoop up that 14.9 million in additional funds. So $64 million, it's 100% funding, so that's always great. I've worked for 2 cities and 2 counties, and 80-20 match is not a bad thing, but 100% money is a delightful thing. So we've got 8 segments that are scoping and engineering. We've got 4 segments that are construction. And then we have funding for continuous community engagement, stormwater and flooding analysis, technical assistance, all the things. These dollars have to be expended by like Q2 2031. We're not worried about that generally, except for those 4 construction segments. As I'm sure you know, sometimes transportation projects, you hit a bump on right-of-way, utilities, and those projects can take a while. So we've got 6 years. We're going to be with you not just on the engineering and the construction, but with you on all these other technical assistance issues as well. Here in Clayton County, to sort of zoom in on the map, you've got segment 11 we're calling, where it comes around Loop Road there at the airport and then starts coming south of 285. That's for engineering. Then you've got segment 12, scoping and engineering, gets you down to Garden Walk Boulevard. That's construction, so we ask for construction dollars there. Then we get down to the hospital right there, and we've got to figure out a way to make sure we can get then over to Terra Boulevard. And so Terra Boulevard is right now in our transportation improvement program for just a sidewalk project, and I believe you all just recently or about to have engineering services start. We're hoping that proceeds well. We're hoping y'all will consider looking at a what we call a side path, something that can not just handle pedestrians but also bicycles as well. And then, of course, y'all would apply to us for the 80% construction dollars. So again, we're going to be with you for 6 years. We're going to be a familiar and hopefully happy face with good news. This is one grant. The nice thing about this grant program is evidently puts us sort of at the head of the line for some other grants. So as long as we make good progress, can show that we're doing the good work, we should be able to maybe bring in some other dollars later. So one thing that we pledged to do in that grant application was to do a Flint River Gateway Trails master plan. It's going to be patterned a little bit after Beltline, but also Chattahoochee Riverlands, which is something ARC led in around 2017, 2018, 2019. That looked at, of course, the Chattahoochee River, a different animal, 100 miles, bigger river. But we feel like it's pretty similar. You have multiple jurisdictions. We have some good not-for-profit partners. On the Chattahoochee, Trust for Public Land has been able to bring in $250 million sort of on top of federal, state, and local dollars from philanthropic sources like Woodruff, Cox Foundation, things like that. So we're hoping we can repeat some of the success from this and Beltline and other models, and not just get the federal and state dollars, but get some philanthropic dollars to help with sort of that secret sauce that sometimes federal dollars can't do. So the master plan is like many master plans, but probably I would argue the most important part is there at the end, those design guidelines for project development. We want folks to, if they're starting their journey in the Beltline area or not, for them to start working their way down through the Tri-Cities and down here into Clayton, for us to have sort of a similar set of design guidelines so these projects have that same look and feel so folks, get that experience all the way through. And hopefully you capture, I guess, we want the sum to be greater than the whole of the parts. So we think we need to get this done so we can sort of set the stage for all these projects to work well together. To get this done, ARC is going to put in $1 million in federal dollars, and we're looking for a local match from Clayton County, City of East Point, City of Hapeville, College Park, and Aerotropolis. So I guess we're here tonight. We have an MOA that's out there. We hope you'll consider it at some future meeting. Thank you.
All right, any questions from Mr. Myers?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Okay, we started with 64 million.
Yes, ma'am.
So now, is that for the Flint, or is that including all the other cities that you just named?
So that is for this map here. So it's for 8 segments to do scoping / engineering and 4 segments for construction and then some technical assistance work.
Is that Clayton County, or is that the East Point?
Everybody. So that's Clayton
Everybody.
County, Hapeville, East
Okay.
Point, College Park, everybody.
That was too good to be true.
But sometimes you're stronger together.
Right?
Commissioner Davis.
Mr. Meyer, thank you for the presentation. What type of projects have been put up on the top of you all's list? Have there been any that have already been kind of researched, and are you favorites of ARC or
In terms of,
just some of the construction projects?
honestly, yeah, we are so excited that we secured this grant, and we're looking forward to actually Federal Highway having a contract with us to get the money going. And honestly, it's our job to be an honest broker of this process and to listen to you, listen to your residents. So it's my job to try to deliver this project, make sure we don't leave any money on the table at the end of 6 years, and hear what you and your residents want. Yeah.
Something for me that's interesting. That's what the reason I'm asking is because of the terrible work corridor. And to me, with construction, with some of these grant monies being available for sidewalks and other pedestrian safety type of constructions, is why I'm asking.
We like that. I'm the head of bicycle and pedestrian and trail planning for the ARC. So seeing an opportunity with a project that's already in the pipeline for engineering and the possibility of it going from a sidewalk project, which is great and needed, to also something that can handle other modes as well. So we think that would be great. But again, we work for you. We work for our member local governments.
Well, you'll be hearing from me about that.
All right, Commissioner Hamburg.
Hope
Yeah.
to.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
a little bit more about the trail. From what point, starting point to the ending point would this trail entail?
So can I walk over there and sort of
Yes,
point?
sure.
That's the.
Now, if you touch the screen, it's going to change, so it's touch screen.
See the light blue, sort of little bit of circle here? That's the belt line.
Okay.
And so City of Atlanta is working on this segment 1. So that's not part of the grant. That's something that they already have in the pipeline. They're working on it. So what we're looking to do is connect the Beltline, which has been an undeniable success for a bicycle and pedestrian project and just a redevelopment.
Which part of the Beltline comes down that close to?
I'm trying to think of like what you would, I mean, I just think of this as, you know, this is the southern, southwest portion of the Beltline is open actually right now.
So it's
you've got-
West Side Trail. So that's the, where Lee and White sits, West Side Trail. So right where Roosevelt Highway pushes up to Lee and White.
Okay, I didn't know it extended now. Okay.
Right there.
Yeah, so we'll, you know, City of Atlanta's gonna come down there, then we'll pick it up with East Point, get down to Willingham, and make our way down into Clayton. So altogether, if we were to include Terra, that's about 25 miles of a complete stretch. Not many folks are gonna walk that. That's more of a recreational ride on a Saturday and Sunday. And slowly, you know, maybe like Beltline, you get some restaurants that face the trail, you know, have some outdoor dining, say hi to their friends.
Now, have you all been with MARTA? How does this connect
Good
with the MARTA and
With the BRT and all
Right,
of that.
yes.
Right. So to back up a little bit, Eric is aware of this. There was a conceptual out there called Concept 21. The idea there is that in a perfect world, we'll be able to connect the very north end with the Silver Comet Trail, connect that to the Beltline, the Beltline connecting to certain elements in between Clayton County and South Fulton, so Hateville, that area, and then they will connect to our trail system which is Clayton Connects. Clayton Connects, they want to backdoor it with the state system down at the Monastery in Rockdale County and Fayette County. So theoretically, you'll be able to go on a bike at the Monastery in Rockdale County and ride all the way up to the Silver Comet Trail in Cobb without ever getting on a major thoroughfare. That is the concept that's in space. And so, believe it or not, that became kind of the impetus behind getting a larger pool of federal money because they saw so many multi-jurisdictions in place that could connect multiple trail systems is why it became kind of appealing to the federal government as to why we're giving you a large sum of money because we see so many jurisdictions with opportunities in space.
Okay. Now, will any of this money be used for that, and then maybe a different pot of money regarding the southern regional problems that we're having?
That's where Eric showed, and when he showed a condensed version about the actual match, that's where we're talking about maybe a bridge that over in that, that I call it a swamp buffer is what I call it. But that's adjacent to Southern Regional and across from Charles Drew. That area there, in that wetland area,
Right, yes.
is where we're talking about potentially developing some trails within that space. But the beauty here is that ARC coming to the table and these other jurisdictions coming to the table, they're providing the money to help us with the development of that. Because anytime you're doing building out in the floodplain, you got to make sure you meet all the requirements from the from EPD, the Corps, and other places to make sure that you're not, violating any regulatory laws. So the deal there is that having the match in place that helps us get there quicker, opposed to trying to figure out how do we find the capital to do it ourselves. And so the ARC relationship is going to help us tremendously in getting that trail built out in that space.
Okay. Okay, now, I'm trying to figure out still about BRT. Where
So the
will that-
BRT is all in that same corridor if you're coming down off of Garden Walk and all in that space. So there'll be a parallel about the discussion of what will be the additional amenities that we will build out around the BRT. But more importantly, if there's a trail system that runs parallel to that or runs in conjunction with that, then we can pool both of those pots of money to address those concerns.
Okay.
Yeah, transit, most transit riders start as a pedestrian, so.
Please say that in the mic, sir.
Oh, sorry. Most transit trips start as a, walking trip, so having good, safe, comfortable, walking and bicycling facilities should actually help the transit system also work. Keep it safe, keep it convenient.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I was gonna say anytime timetable here or start, finish, or,
We plan on coming down and visiting y'all. I think part of the MOA is quarterly briefings, so we will let you know time schedules and all that. We're working on that feverishly right now to get the federal dollars in a grant form. So we don't have locked-in time schedules today.
okay, so we don't actually have the 64 million now.
We do not have the big check today. We
No,
don't.
no, no.
We don't expect to have actually that federal contract probably until first quarter of next year.
Okay.
Honestly, it just takes a while to get those dollars flowing.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the opportunity to blend this grant money together. It would be a blessing to see everything working together at the same time, because we know that as we build out these trails and mitigate the flooding and other issues along the Flint, that it is steer economic development further into Clayton County. So, are there any other questions?
Just one last one. When do you believe you'll have grant guidelines and dates drafted?
So we're working on, I guess, the details of that proposal for the federal highway contract right now. So the MOA talks about quarterly updates. So maybe in fall we'll be able to come back down here and we'll have more of a sort of schedule out to 2031.
Gotcha.
But nothing today. We're just excited we got the money.
Thank you.
Yes, extremely. Thank you for your presentation.
Chairman, if I could, one more. He's been modest today. Part of the work with Aerotropolis and under the leadership of Mr. James, he's been very diligent in ensuring that we get constant updates about all the moving parts. They also include the LCI study that we're doing. That includes Jonesboro and Lovejoy and other things that we're doing down the Terra Boulevard corridor. So he'll be probably coming back with some other updates with Strive and some other areas that they've been working with us on to really show you the progress that we're making in that space, so you'll have a report card to give out to the community.
Oh, great. But, so what you all are asking, or will be asking, I guess, at a regular board meeting is the MOA?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Myers, Mr. James, thank you both for your presentation and for all that you're doing here in Clayton County. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, let's go to the Clayton County Comprehensive Plan. Mr. Ejiki.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. I would like to introduce our point person in the department that have shouldered all this work for her to introduce the consultant, and Ms. Mary Derby.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. My name is Mary Darby, and I'm the Planning Administrator, Senior Planner for the Community Development Department. And tonight I have been afforded the opportunity to introduce the consultants that are responsible for the 5-year update from 2019 to 2024. Approximately 1 year ago, the Sizemore Group was retained by the county to update our comprehensive plan from 2019, which was 2024 to 2024 to 2039, in order to meet the state requirements. The Sizemore Group is a full-service studio that has been in business for over 50 years. The firm specializes in creating cultural spaces through sustainability, interior design, and planning. Some of the projects that the Sizemore Group has worked on includes the planning process for the Cumberland CID to the Atlanta Braves battery, and on the design team for the Centennial Olympic Park. The Sizemore Group specialization in planning and sustainability affords the county with achieving our goal of becoming one Clayton. As the project manager for the update of the comprehensive plan, I have received great leadership from our community development director, Patrick Ejike. He has led and guided me along this process. And so at this time, I would like to introduce our senior project manager, which is Deanna Murphy from the Sizemore Group. Thank you.
I don't think Ms. Murphy needs an introduction, but come on up here anyway.
Good evening, Chairman and Commission. Thank you all so much for having us. I do want to start by saying your community development staff has been incredibly helpful in this process, just working very hard to make sure we have the right data and the right background and that everything is moving smoothly. So thank you to you all for your efforts. So tonight we're going to go over a brief summary of the overall comprehensive plan. And I want to start by introducing the project team. As mentioned, Sizemore Group, we are the lead planning firm. Myself, Deanna Murphy, has been working as the project manager. And we have several team members who you may have seen throughout this project, including Bill Day St. Aubin, Randy Gibbs, and Nishant Ostwald. We have had two partners in Sycamore Consulting and Kimley Horn. Sycamore Consulting leading our community engagement efforts, and Kimley Horn doing transportation and economic development. Our agenda for tonight is to give you an overview of the comprehensive plan process, give you a brief of the community engagement process, and then talk through the key components that really make up the recommendations within the comp plan. Let's jump in quick. Project schedule. So as Mary mentioned, we started back in August, so we're coming up on a year of this overall process. The comp plan is due to the Department of Community Affairs by October 31st. We are ahead of schedule on that. At this point, we are wrapping up the document. We are looking to present that to the Atlanta Regional Commission in July. So we'll be back here on July 16th to ask for your approval to send that document to the Atlanta Regional Commission and Department of Community Affairs. From there, we will get comments from them. That will be about a month process. We'll come back in August to the ZAG and then back to you all in September to ask for final approval. So we'll be about a month ahead of schedule. So if anything does go awry, we've got a little bit of breathing room. The overall comprehensive plan process, which I'm sure you are familiar with, but it really is about setting priorities for the county, making sure that we're setting you up with projects and action steps to start to implement an overall vision. It is a requirement by the Department of Community Affairs, and that is overall linked to funding. So CBGB funding, economic development funding, that is all linked to having an accredited, approved comprehensive plan in place. And of course, this is a path to future growth. So we look at a lot of land use elements throughout this process, and we'll share some of that later on. But it helps to guide and determine how and you want growth to happen here in the county. There are 9 different elements that are part of this process. Everything from looking at broadband and internet services to housing, transportation, land use, economic development. But what I've highlighted here is the community work program. That is our 5-year action plan program. And so it has steps for each department to take over the next 5 years to ensure that we're moving towards the overall vision. And this is our overall process. So we start with existing conditions. We do a lot of assessment into those elements that I mentioned before. We look at a report of accomplishments, and that's essentially what has been completed since the previous comp plan. So we spend a lot of time looking at that, and you all have a lot of great accomplishments to boast about. We do a vision and goal update, as well as looking at the future land use. We have added a character area map to your comprehensive plan that was not in the previous iterations, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the community work program, as I mentioned, is that 5-year action plan. We adopt the plan, and then the job's not over, right? So there is implementation to follow that, a review of that implementation, and then in 5 years, you will update again. So I will go through our public engagement strategy. We've had 6 public meetings in 3 different series. So every series had 2 meetings. Each of the meetings we attempted to go to different locations throughout the county. So we tried to hit every district, make sure that we were making ourselves accessible to community residents throughout. We also did a virtual meeting as our final meeting in April as another opportunity for those who may not have been able to make it in person. We had a community survey that ran for a couple months throughout the process. We had 2 pop-up events. One was at the Jim Huey Recreation Center attached to an existing event, and then we also went to the Spring Fest in Forest Park. In both places, we had a booth set up, getting input from community residents. We had social media engagement with the help of your communications department, and then we had a website that was active throughout and still is. You can see the website there is www.futurefocusclayton.com. It has interactive components to it, and the draft plan will be updated there as well starting tomorrow morning. Some of the highlights from the community engagement was really talking about destination spots, areas where they'd like to see more development. And I will say a lot of that ends up focusing on our major corridors, Terra Boulevard, looking at Mountain View as the opportunities there, and Clayton State. So we heard a lot about those areas. Opportunities to improve and beautify existing properties, address blight and vacant properties. Mobility issues really focused around pedestrian safety. There was a desire for even more green space. There was a lot of comments about what wonderful parks and green space the county has and how can we continue to grow that and make those amenities more accessible. So now I'll get into the recommendations, starting with vision and goals. Our updated vision for this comprehensive plan is that Clayton County aims to create a safe, accessible, and vibrant community through collaborative partnerships with abundant economic opportunities, diverse housing options, and enhanced health care. The county is a destination where the world lands and opportunities take off for all to stop, stay, and experience the beauty of our county while ensuring everyday needs and services are within reach. Our draft goals, there's a more extensive list, but I'm just going to give you the summary of them. They are by these elements, and this is how this links back to the elements that DCA requires. So the land use element, the goal there, some of the highlights are accommodating industrial land use appropriately, making sure that it's in complementary areas, addressing blight, focusing development on key nodes, specifically looking at Mountain View, Terra Boulevard, and Clayton State University. Making sure that new development is compatible with the bus rapid transit focus. Looking at MedTech expansion, as well as including neighborhood services into our land uses, especially where there's areas that are predominantly growing residentially. Our transportation goals focused on infrastructure, safety for bike and ped, overall beautification of our corridors, coordination with the bus rapid transit efforts, road maintenance, and then focusing a lot of those efforts at those key nodes that I just mentioned. Our housing goals are to provide a variety of housing options throughout the county, address blight in underutilized housing areas, overall maintenance, especially for legacy residents, and ensuring that housing is integrated into mix of uses. Our economic development goals focus on overall development, especially at those key nodes, job growth, partnerships with key vendors throughout the county, and improving the overall perception of the county. Health, wellness, and sustainability is actually a new element that we added because we heard so much about this topic, especially with the focus on the Flint River right now. So that is a focus, is the Flint River and the Flint River flooding issues as well, especially near Southern Regional Medical Center. But also overall mitigation of pollution and encouraging sustainability throughout the county. Our goals for intergovernmental coordination are really about collaboration with partners throughout the county and communication to our residents. And then the last item is actually new to this comp plan. It's a new element for DCA, is the broadband goals. And our goals really focus on improving access and improving overall infrastructure for the county. Our next major element within the comp plan is the future land use map. And so there were several steps we took to update this. First, we looked at development nodes. So we looked at what are some of the existing assets that are drawing people to areas throughout the county. We looked at where the bus rapid transit, especially transit-oriented development nodes, are being identified. We looked at currently underway and previous plans, such as the Terra Boulevard LCI and the Aerotropolis 2.0, looking at where they have catalytic and community sites and identifying those. And then we identified on that bottom list a series of development nodes through this plan that were key to growth in the county. We took that and we looked at as well existing land use throughout the county, looking at what those percentages are, where the growth and changes are in existing land use. We also looked at the current, what we're calling the current future land use map, and that's the one that's in place right now. So that was adopted in 2019. It is called the 2034 future land use map. So we looked at what was addressed and what was recommended there. And we took all of that and worked really closely with city staff to create a new future land use map for 2039. You can see on the right some of the major changes, and those are color-coded by red being the biggest change, yellow being lowest change, and then the greens being a positive versus a negative. One thing to note here is that low-density residential looks to have increased quite a bit, while medium-density residential declined. That really is a shift in several areas where residential in the previous future land use map were identified as medium density, but according to the county's land use, those are actually low density. So we wanted to correct that error from the previous future land use map.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I'm not quite understanding the true difference between the future land use 2039
It's
and the
kind of
future
slow.
current land use 2034.
Yeah, so what we're calling 2034, it was created in the 2019 plan. Because these are 20-year plans, they pull it out and say, okay, this is the 2034 plan. And now we're doing the next 5-year update, so we're calling it now the 2039 plan. So it's just a shift in the future land use map over the 5 years. We also worked really hard to address in this new map anything that's been changed, approved by the Board of Commissioners in terms of land use changes over the past really 10 years. The department had been working on those updates, but they really worked hard to make sure that everything was integrated. So all of that has been included. So you'll see some shifts in land use numbers here as well because of that. As I mentioned, we developed a character area map. This is new to the comprehensive plan for Clayton County. What a character area map provides is essentially opportunities to provide descriptions, more development standards for areas of focus in the county. So we looked at areas of growth, areas with opportunity. We created a character for those, and then we identified, and I'll show you here, identified development and design strategies. So for example, with the commercial redevelopment site, we have a description, we have recommended land uses, and then we have development and design standards. And those, in this case, are beautification in terms of signage and landscaping, addressing existing strip mall development to do renovations to make it more attractive, walkability, mixed-use development. These are the things we're encouraging in that commercial redevelopment. And so I won't go through all of them now, but you should have that information in the overall report for each of the character areas. Next is our community work program. And so this, as I mentioned, is a really big part of the process because it is your next steps. And so overall, this provides, you can see an example on the right, it provides an overall time frame, it provides cost estimates, who's responsible, and potential funding sources. And this is broken down by department. And so I'm going to go through department and just kind of give you some highlights of what's in that work program currently. The Economic Development Department, there are 9 items that were still relevant from the previous comp plan, and you'll see that in all of these. Anything that was not completed or is ongoing, in a lot of cases, those will be items like for under transportation, maintenance of certain infrastructure throughout the county. And so those are ongoing items, so we just move those forward into this new work program. So with economic development, we move some items forward, and then some of the new items are a marketing campaign as well as the creation of an economic development incentive package. A difference from the last comp plan is that you didn't have a separation between the development authority and the economic development department, and I know that restructured since the last comprehensive plan. So we have 2 different departments now taking on these items. So the development authority, we moved 1 item over to them from the previous comp plan, and then they have new items focused on resources to key sites, those being the Mountain View, Terra Boulevard, and Clayton State area, and making sure they're focusing efforts there. A lot of focus on Mountain View and moving some of the steps forward that have been recommended in previous plans, such as assigning a project manager for the Mountain View area and consolidating properties. We've put a new item for coordination with the bus rapid transit and coordinating development potential at those sites. partnerships with Clayton State University, and then working with the Community Development Department to update the pre-application process so that workforce questions are integrated.
Okay,
Yeah.
so are these plans for 2040 or things to be done before 2040?
So these are the 5-year plans. So these are all items to be addressed over the next 5 years.
Please continue. No.
Okay. Under community development, there were 3 items that we moved forward from the previous comp plan, but new items included considering a industrial mixed-use zoning category that would incorporate residential into light industrial areas. This focuses on areas that are kind of sitting between residential zones, but they have some light industrial uses, and how can we better integrate them into the overall community? There's a series of design guidelines that we've recommended, including industrial design guidelines, private development, overlay districts, and transit-oriented developments. We're recommending a small area plan for the Clayton State University area. And then coordination with the efforts out of the Terra Boulevard LCI and the Aerotropolis 2.0. There's recommendations coming out of there that we've put into our work program. And then conduct a land viability study along the Flint River to ensure that those land uses accommodate the trail growth in that area. We worked with the school system to update their overall work program. You can see the items here are communication support, operations for event planning, and the construction of North Clayton High School. The Parks and Recreation Department Community Work Program items include an update to the Parks and Rec Master Plan, participation in the Flint River Trails planning and implementation, and creation of pollution and noise mitigation plans. For intergovernmental coordination, it's really focused on quarterly meetings and coordination and collaboration, specifically with the county to the cities and to Clayton State, as well as with the airport. And then overall outreach and information sharing to the community. The library system, new items included several library renovations at Riverdale, the headquarters, Jonesboro, and Rex, as well as painting of interiors on several buildings throughout. The police department has 2 new items, one to do with the establishment of the police academy, and one with refurbishing the police department. Fire and EMS have 1 item in terms of the Riverdale merger. Oh gosh. The Water Authority, looking at flooding issues near Southern Regional Medical Center, a focus on that effort, as well as continuing their great work on removing contaminants and providing clean water for the county. The Building and Maintenance Department has the completion of the Facilities Master Plan, which is currently underway, as well as new buildings and improvements, including the Administration Building, Behavioral Health, Medical Examiner's Office, and the VIP Complex Amphitheater. I think this is the last slide. Digital Equity Department, we have some new items there. This was a new section for this work program. We have a partnership with DCA on broadband ready sites, exploring Clayton as an internet provider, and promoting federal funding for broadband services. And then last but not least is transportation, and some of the new items here are an update to the comprehensive transportation plan, coordination with MARTA on the bus rapid transit process, and consideration of adopting a T-SPLOST. And then just to give you all next steps, we are here tonight on June 11th for the work session. The Community Development Department is going to take a similar presentation to a community information meeting tomorrow night to get some further input. We'll present to the ZAG on July 1st, and then we'll come back to you all on July 16th, having incorporated any edits or changes as requested. And at that point, we'll be asking for your approval to send to DCA for their review. We will make those edits and come back in August, first to the community information meeting, to the ZAG in August, and then back to you all for final approval in September.
Well, Well, it's obvious you and your team have done a lot of work and very aggressive in trying to get through some of these projects. Are there any questions for Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambrick?
Okay, so this has to be approved through the state.
That's right.
Okay, and how often is that requirement required, I guess?
Every 5 years.
Every 5
Mm-hmm. And so right now, you all are on an October 31st deadline every 5 years.
Last time was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, will there be an exhaustive list of funding sources for each of these items?
Yes, so, and I can show you maybe I can't show you an example. Oop. We'll go back up to the top. So what we will provide is, you can see on the right there are funding sources. So it's everything from SPLOST funding to general funding to grants that we know are available, or partnerships with certain organizations who fund
And that will
things.
be an exhaustive list, though.
Mhm.
Great, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And you mentioned the possibly a
Yes.
T-SPLOST. Are there any recommendations for things to be included in that, if that were to occur?
You know, we haven't dug super deep into it. I think the recommendation is for you all to explore the option and see if it's something the county wants to pursue.
I believe we're already maxed out. We can't do a T-SPLOST.
Okay.
Any other questions? Again, thank you and
Thank you
your
so
team for
much.
the work that you're doing. A lot of good work, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Public Facilities Authority Board. Y'all even jumped up together.
Uh-huh.
In unison with that.
Teamwork.
That's it.
right. And it's my understanding that, Chairman, you want us like 35 to 40 minutes or something? No, in seriousness, first of all, I'm glad that both of us can kind of talk to this issue. This is another one of this board's wins. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of also educate the public, because we've kind of moved really fast on this. So this is going to be kind of answering the question that you raised, Commissioner Hambrick, at Tuesday's meeting, but also going a little bit further just to kind of educate the public on what this Facilities Authority does. So first, as you know, I like...
Created.
Correct, why it's created. So again, just a quick summary, the background, public policy overview, description of the missions, objectives, key functions, do an overview of the legislation, talk a little bit about some potential volunteer background skills for people who may be appointed to this, and then answer any questions that you have. Okay, first, dealing with the public policy overview. Traditionally, the county's approach to inventory management, when I say inventory management, I mean like our buildings, has basically been through two methods. SPLOST, which is every 6 years, or our general fund. So unless you know at the outset in 2015 or 2009 or 2021 what things you anticipate you want to do over that 6-year period, then any necessary repairs that fall in between that really are dependent on the health of the general fund. And so on December 23rd, 2023, Mr. COO and myself, we presented several alternate funding options recommended by our financial advisor, Ed Wall, to basically come up with a method of improving county facilities outside of SPLOST and the general fund. And so on, you all passed Resolution 2024-19, which asked the legislative delegation to introduce and pass legislation creating a public facilities authority. And again, thanks to the legislation, to the legislative delegation, that House Bill 1242 was passed, creating the Clayton County Public Facilities Authority. And again, it was that partnership between the board and the legislative delegation on getting this done, and so I want to give them a shout out as well. So this this board has in the past talked about wanting to do what's best practices and kind of get a sense of doing what's best, what other counties are also doing, if it makes sense. And so there are many local jurisdictions that have created public facilities authorities throughout the state of Georgia. I've only listed a handful, but if you just do a search, they are all over. Rockdale, City of Sandy Springs, City of Decatur, City of Roswell, Forsyth County, just to name a few. They're all across. So I'm going to step aside and let Mr. CLO talk about what a public facilities authority is.
So, board, part of the discussion as we talk specifically about, there's a lot of municipalities that have utilized authorities in different ways. There has been a lot of jurisdictions that utilize their development authority to handle some of those areas. The reason why we thought it was important to use a public facilities authority, we want to have a focus specifically on our facilities, recognizing that there's always a need for funding in space. And if we have a group of individuals that are working for the greater good to figure out ways that we can specifically find funding opportunities to handle that, then we thought that would be a good recommendation. And we thank this board for seeing the value of doing that. So Public Facilities Authority, it's a government entity that helps municipalities and other local governments fund and build public infrastructure primarily. The PFAs can help build or renovate facilities for clean water, transportation, and other public needs. We put that in there because we thought it was important that sometimes we think facilities only infrastructure, but they can help with roads, they can help with some other things as well if this board chooses to ask them to do that, or the authority goes in that direction to help with that. Also, it assists municipalities to lease space for more than 1 year and serve as ownership partners for major development. So again, when we're limited with vertical projects or we're limited with space, they also can help us with leasing developments. So there's opportunities that if we have to find some space to procure pretty quickly, then the Public Facilities Authority can help us with that. The primary objective and the core objectives are a little different. The primary objective of a PFA is enhancing community infrastructure, and again, I talk about jail, recreation, senior centers, et cetera. And then also supporting economic development. So if we're talking specifically about attracting a short-term opportunity, the Public Facilities Authority can help us from the economic development lens as well. And the core objectives, as our Chief Staff Attorney so eloquently outlined, it can help us from a financing standpoint. When we talk about facilitating financing for public projects, the PFA can help from that end. And of course, managing public assets and resources more efficiently. And so when I say more efficiently, it's going back to Chuck's point about our two major funding sources right now, SPLOST and the general fund. If we have a funding source that continually is in place, we can help fill in that gap when we don't have the funding in place, and we can't be so codependent upon those other areas. So we have a true capital outlay program. Fortunately enough, our building and maintenance director, through some of the work, they have put forth some assessment of what values and some of the cost constraints that we have with some of our facilities. So now we can find a more creative way of funding some of those projects now, opposed to waiting every 5 years. And that's not, I mean, we do have capital money in place, but we all know SPLOST is our primary major focus when it comes to taking care of capital outlay needs. The management of public assets, again, financing public projects, issuing bonds and other financial instruments. Again, leveraging state and federal funding. We know we have the Office of Grant Administrations, and they help out tremendously. But also the Public Facilities Authority can help out, help and identify funding as well. It's not just about bonding. They may be aware of some other areas. So, Commissioner, back to your primary question, if we got members on that board that have a financial background or have a grant background, they can play a huge role in making recommendations to other places we can find the funding. Planning and development, long-term planning for public facilities, and coordinating with departments and stakeholders will be also a major role that they could play.
All right, yeah. So I'm going to talk very high level through what House Bill 1242 does. So it's an independent authority, just like any other authorities, the Development Authority, Housing Authority. It has the ability to sue and be sued. I'm not going to read that verbatim, but basically it was created to promote the public good and general welfare, provide financing and providing facilities, equipment, and services within the county. That's language directly from the House bill. The composition of the Public Facilities Authority, there's 5 members who are all appointed by the board, actually, and members of the BOC can also be appointed to the authority. For the first initial appointments, 2 are appointed for 3 years, 2 for 2 years, and 1 for 1 year. And then afterwards, all appointments are for 3 years each, so it's some staggered roll-off. So to be eligible for appointment, it's very simple. They're 21 years of age, a resident of Clayton County for at least 2 years prior to the appointment, and not have been convicted of a felony. Any member of the authority is eligible to be reappointed. These individuals are not paid other than reimbursement of expenses actually occurred in the performance of their duties. I know that's a question that often comes up. There is no compensation. After they appoint, they have some internal work they have to do. They elect a chairperson, a vice chair, a secretary, and treasurer, although the secretary and treasurer do not have to be members of the authority. They can actually identify other people to come in and do that. The secretary can also act as the treasurer. All of those officers serve for a period of 1 year. Very briefly, I'm going to just talk through what the powers of the authority are. I'm not going, it's very, very high level, but basically they have the authority to have a seal, obtain and dispose of real and personal property, appoint officers, employees, set their compensation. In other words, they can hire staff. They can enter into, execute contracts with the county, school system, and municipalities, and that's important to recall because while it is the Clayton County Public Facilities Authority, they can also work with municipalities to help take care of some of their issues and also help work with the school board, or school system, I'm sorry, to take care of issues that they may have as well. So it is a wide-ranging authority, not just for the county. They can acquire and dispose of projects, and projects are a defined term, basically just a way of finishing a building or something like that. Whatever they define as that project, they can acquire and dispose of that. Again, they can pay for proceeds with projects with revenues of let me say that again. Pay for projects with proceeds of revenue bonds or other contributions, accept loans or grants of money, borrow money, issue revenue bonds, prescribe rules, policies, and procedures, adopt, alter, repeal bylaws, and do everything necessary to carry out the powers of the Act. That's very, very high level. The House bill goes into more detail on a lot of those points, but for the sake of this presentation, I don't want to go that minute into all the details on that. It also speaks to the process of issuing revenue bonds. They have to adopt a resolution. Again, just like other authorities, they're not a debt of the county, or if it's with the school system, not the school system, or if it's a municipality or the state, doesn't create a debt of any of those entities. And if they were to create a bond for something, the county can also enter into an agreement with them to pay monies for operating charges and costs for a particular project. So let's say there was a road project that they wanted to do, and they did a bond for that, and the county decided that they wanted to pay for that work. They could enter into an intergovernmental agreement that the county would pay off portion of the costs of that project. So it wouldn't be as if the county was doing the bonds. They would have their bond, but we would just enter into an agreement with them to facilitate the funding of that project, if that makes sense. I can explain it a little better. So let's say if we were doing a renovation, rather than us using SPLOST or using general fund, we could have a bond issued from the Public Facilities Authority. They would use that money to pay for the cost of whatever renovation we were doing, and then we would pay that money back to the authority if that was something that we wanted to do.
Will they have the ability to apply for federal funds or funding and all? Because
Yes.
I'm looking at this similar to the way the housing authority was created back in 80 whatever and all. So will they still be at the answering to the?
A lot of that will be based on some of the other things that we'll get into as far as appointing.
Yeah, okay. And training
And,
all?
right. Again, the authority, its employees, they're immune from torts and negligence, just like the county. The income of the authority is tax exempt. It doesn't prevent the county from issuing its own bonds if we choose to do so. So I'm going to talk a little bit, or have Dietrich talk a little bit about some potential backgrounds and skills for people appointed to the authority.
So to the core of the presentation, this is really piggybacking off of the question that Commissioner Hambrick asked about in the last board meeting. And why that's a good question is because authorities, and more importantly as authority, you're looking for a particular skill set because you want the overview, you want the individual to come to the table with some knowledge about what the expectation is around that. So potential backgrounds and skills of a person appointed to the authority. Clearly, community leaders who understand the needs and priorities of the county play a huge role. So that can be any government official. As Chuck alluded to earlier, that can be a board member, that can be a commissioner, that can be a mayor, that can be a city council member, that can be a state legislator. Any of those individuals certainly would qualify as potential appointees to the PFA. Professionals with relevant experience, i.e., you're dealing with individuals that might be architects, engineers, urban planners, real estate developers, financial experts, whether they're CPA or have some dealings in understanding bonding opportunities in space. And environmental specialists, that go a long way too, because when you talk about doing an assessment on potential property that we're looking to build upon, it's always good to know environmentally what's the impact of that facility on our infrastructure, and then ultimately somebody comes to the table will help us with that. Business leaders with experience in managing projects and strategic planning. Educational professionals who can provide oversight in the needs of the educational facilities. Are some of the individuals that we believe that we would recommend that you would look for as you're looking for folk to staff or serve in the capacity of leadership on the PFA board. There are some others, nonprofit sector representatives to bring perspective on community service and social impacts. So we're looking to do we're looking to do a pocket park. And we talk about the social benefits that's in space. They not only can help with the funding, but also could talk about what will be the impact of individuals in that community that could utilize that resource. We can get feedback from the PFA around that. Residents of all ages who may use some of the facilities in question to provide perspective on user experiences and activities. And what we've heard in some instances, they may not be, as we talked about earlier, members of the board, but the board can populate what we call an advisory group inside of that board. So they may ask that the youth commission come in and provide an update on things that they're hearing about particular build outs and get feedback from the different user groups and then make recommendations to this board about things that they think are important.
State that again.
So you can develop what we call an advisory council within the PFA. So they're not board members, they're not voting members, but they can serve as a institution or serve as an advisory group to provide feedback to questions that the PFA may have in order to make more sound decisions because of it.
As far as selecting people for this board,
Yes, ma'am.
and I think you said something about 21 and all, what if they live somewhere else but work for Clayton County? Does that make them ineligible?
So the requirements call for them to be Clayton County residents. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For 2 years, prior to the appointment.
Right. It goes on, and we provided some others, technology experts to opine upon incorporating modern technology to facility management, former retired public safety officers for input on safety issues. So what that then leads us to, three primary things. You want a diverse group. You want folk that come to the table with different experiences to ensure that when you're populating the PFA, you have a diversity of thought around areas in space Another thing that our chief staff attorney always talks to us about is that also you want to be careful to make sure folk don't unnecessarily put themselves in a conflict of interest space. Because if they're going to be bonding projects out, they're going to play a huge role in that space. You can't leverage that as an opportunity because it's your company to then in turn come on the board and then go forth and procure different services. So part of the vetting is getting a sense of ensure that they understand the conflict of interest in place if they see they own a company, then ultimately want to bond out certain projects and their company be involved in that. It's kind of some of the other main areas of concern or of interest that you should take into consideration.
I think that would be a big part of the training, you know, and I think we're still in the training phase too for some of the boards we already have.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't want
I
to
agree.
forget that because there are some people that have not had training on some of these boards. May I make a recommendation? And you all may have already thought of this. Some of these cities and counties that you named already have something in place that we could learn from them, or they may have something that they can offer to us as far as getting things started and how this has helped them. You know.
Yes, ma'am. So we did reach out to some of those municipalities to get a sense of their structure and get a sense of, you know, how do they come about, and you know, we asked about the good, the bad, the ugly, to kind of give us the lay of the land. And through the structure of the presentation, we tried to highlight some of those areas that they've outlined. Some are using their PFA a little differently than what our initial thoughts were, because in some of those municipalities, they don't have a development authority. They don't have these other type of authorities that we may have here. So their work might be a little more robust than what we presently are doing. But the presentations was built off of having some conversation with some of those municipalities about, you know, some of their concerns. But we certainly can reach back out to them, Commissioner, and ask some more poignant questions to see whether there's some other things we need to be thinking about as we're making recommendations to the board.
Okay. Will they start with, I guess, a bank account or whatever, or how does it start?
So once the board appoints at least a quorum, then there will be counsel appointed for them as well. Okay. So that counsel will be familiar with the Public Facilities Authority, have work with authority, have experience working with authorities, so they will be able to help them starting putting things together. Again, they have to identify a secretary and a treasurer, so some of those things on establishing a bank account, establishing protocols, establishing bylaws, we may even be able to, well, they may be able to look at some of the others who have already established and even take some of the bylaws they have there and not have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. So, but again, they are going to be independent. So having people, again, as we were talking about, community leaders who have the best interests of the county in mind are those types. They should fall through all of those particular segments so that that we're all working together in helping to bring this, the board's vision to pass in creating this PFA.
So tell me about the independence that you just spoke about.
In other words, just like the housing authority, just like the development authority, this board is not dictating necessarily how they carry out. They have their own independence, but the idea is that you all will be working together to carry out the policies of this board, just like all of the other boards that you have.
Where it may differ a little bit, Commissioner, in this particular instance, I failed to mention, like, the building and maintenance director will serve as an ex officio on that board. So if we know we have a pool of projects because we need funding around those projects or need to find a creative way, Ben can recommend, they can't dictate to the authority what they can do, but he can recommend, here are some of the projects and here are some of the things that are getting done, need to get done. And then that authority then can contemplate on that list of activities to figure out ways of funding it. So unlike the water authority or the housing authority, yeah, we don't necessarily have an ex officio from a government employee that can help provide recommendations. And Chuck is 100% correct. I keep using the term recommend to that board as to things they can contemplate, and hopefully they take that under advisement to help us address some of the needs that we have in place. But all that is predicated upon the appointees, right? Them having a profound understanding of what the role and responsibilities are and what the board see as a primary function of that board or that authority per se. So that's where we kind of differ a little bit by having an ex officio in space. Ben doesn't have the ability to vote or anything of that sort, but certainly could be an advisor to needs of the county as he attends those respective meetings.
I'm trying to find that list of positions. I know you said something about secretary and treasurer. What are the other, is it president or director or I can't.
Chair.
What is
It's chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer.
Okay. So they will or will not have a director?
So they'll have the ability, if they need to, they have the ability to hire staff if they find there's a need to do so. But that's not a requirement of this authority. The only 4 positions that is really 3, but or I should say 3 people can hold the 4 positions: chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, although the secretary and treasurer can be the same person.
I've got 2 questions. What is the difference between this authority and the development authority?
Well, the purpose is primarily the difference. The reason why the board chose to move with the Public Facilities Authority is because of the funding options that you have for critical infrastructure build. While you can go to the Development Authority, this board has designated the Development Authority playing a more central role in economic development through the IGA, through the Economic Development Plan that was adopted in line with the CREST study. That tangentially there may be some benefit to facility infrastructure builds, but more directly, this board had set out a plan for how the county and the Development Authority and the Economic Development Authority would work hand in hand in creating economic development and moving the county's economic development forward. This authority is really more for, as we identified, dealing with public facilities and having more of a impact throughout.
Yeah, and for me, the reason I asked that question, it comes down to what you just said, the whole tangent function or direction of the board, and I want to make sure that they are not crossing work tasks.
You're 100% Commissioner, but the beauty of it is that if need be, now you have 2 governing authorities that have the ability to tackle a problem in a multitude of ways. And so the recommendation, and where I can use as an example of the difference in the 2, if you think about Development Authority that now have been given the charge to look at working in conjunction with Economic Development Office to look at new development in the community, and that's their primary focus. The Public Facilities Authority may be looking at how do we continue to take care of the blight, take care of some of our aging infrastructure in place, and pay attention to that. So we had to draw a line of delineation in the lane between the 2. That would be the 2 different paths of desire for the 2 different authorities.
And the second question is, these positions, these board appointments are set for, 2 and 3 year terms. Who is going to set which one is 2, which one is 3? Is that set by them? Is that set by the board? Because I know on the agenda, it is stating what should be taking place, but not what our appointment will have, what our appointee will have.
That's going to be up to the board to determine which member you want to appoint for how long.
Okay.
So that will be up to you. And then once the clerk then they'll just start that and note that this person is going to be appointed for 1 year, this person for 2, this person will be for 3.
But board members can't be reappointed.
That's correct.
Thank you for that explanation of this whole idea of this authority, because I can see every day. I mean, we're waiting now, as far as maintenance is concerned with senior services, a simple mixer, that is needed and all, because the folks want their carrot souffle. But anyway, but other things too, like the air conditioning, and I can just name every facility up in District 2
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is in need of some kind of repair, whether it's air conditioning or heat so I'm glad that we are doing this, and to speak really, the jail. We could definitely use that, to get some of those repairs done and all. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you all for sending this, working with the delegation and all to get this done, to get this passed. So thank you very much.
And like you said earlier, kudos out to our delegation who they asked the pointed questions and wanted to make sure that the bill itself contained everything that we as this board wanted to have in it, and I feel like that they did that. So yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you both for your presentation and the information. And with that being said, no other business for this board.
Okay, now, so when does this board have to be established, a full, or at
Till we
least
get a quorum.
A quorum? Because I noticed you all had that on the agenda last week, and I didn't have a clue.
And it's going to be on next week's agenda.
It's going to be next week's agenda. I mean, ideally, we've got a lot of stuff, speaking to your point, to the jail. I mean, we've got a lot of things that need to be done. And so the sooner we can get them in space, the sooner we can start them getting the ball rolling, to get their bylaws done, to get their people appointed, to go through the process, because once even they start, it's still going to be several months before they can probably really have things in place to help us take care of some of the problems that we need to take care of.
We'll need to explain that to them, because sometimes people get on board and they're ready to start working right then, so.
Right. But what was particularly helpful is the way you outlined those who would be most beneficial to serve on those boards, the skill sets. So,
And, well, let me just ask this, would it be wise to look at the Carl Vinson Institute to begin to identify some specific training for them before we even appoint them?
So yes, there's a couple of organizations, but back to Commissioner Hambrick's point, we're trying to figure out a way to provide some orientation for all of our boards and committees, because we got quite a few members that's appointed on those boards that just need to get some historical perspective and an understanding of mission and goals of those boards. So we are trying to find somebody comprehensively to look at our boards, but we would include a PFA in that as well. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
okay, y'all, you good? Okay, all right. Let's go with it then. We stand adjourned. Thank you.